Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 33. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm having a case of the Mondays.
On a Wednesday.
Yeah. I'm having a case of the Mondays on a Wednesday, man. It's been a brutal day, but making it through it, and I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel now, and it's not a train. And we're sorry that this thing is probably being released later than what it normally is on a Wednesday. But I think because of the guests we have on, I think it'll be well worth the wait for everybody.
Absolutely. Later on in the show, we will be talking to David Beauclair, who covers the Titans for SI.com. Be sure to follow him at Beauclair Sports. And we had him on a couple weeks ago when we thought this game was originally going to be played back in Week 4. Of course, now postponed and scheduled for Sunday at 1 o'clock. So we'll talk to David and get his thoughts on the Titans a little bit later in the show. But Dave, let's just hop right into things right away. Mike Tomlin, speaking with the media yesterday during his typical Tuesday press conference, did confirm that Devin Bush did tear his ACL, will be out for the rest of the season. Surgery is scheduled for today. And that Robert Spillane will be next man up, which is not a shock, given that he replaced Bush fully in Sunday's win over Cleveland. But he will be the next man up. May not be the only man involved, but number 41, Robert Spillane, is a name that Steeler fans will get to know quite a bit the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is going to go the way that, or at least it's going the way that I thought it might. We thought it might. What'd you read into, getting into the context about what he said about Spillane and possibly others filling in, making more of a kind of a machination the rest of you. Obviously, too, he said that Spillane's probably not going to play every snap. I don't think anybody maybe kind of expected that to happen. But what's your takeaway off of the actual words that Tomlin said about how this is going to go, at least probably for the next 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing real shocking or incredibly noteworthy. Spillane is going to get the bulk of defensive snaps. I think that's been well established. Again, we already basically knew that based on how the workload was handled after Bush exited Sunday's game. We'll see, though. I think there is a level of uncertainty. It'll depend on the job that Spillane does, the job the guys behind him at UG3, Marcus Allen, situational type stuff. We'll see if this team has to get extra creative with maybe using some quarter 7 DB stuff. I think there still are a fair amount of unknowns of exactly how this is going to go. The green dot, we don't even know who's going to be wearing the green dot. Mike Tomlin said those are things they're going to figure out throughout the week. So there is still as I said, fair amount of uncertainty because you can't replace Devin Bush in literally 100% of the snaps with just one guy. You don't have the talent to do that. Really, no team would. So not quite sure how this is going to go.
If you had to bet right now, who's wearing a green dot?
Well, I was trying to think about some of the logistics and some of the rules and stuff. Short answer, I guess Spillane, because he wore it last week. I mean, I think Vince is still the more logical option, but both could work. And then if Spillane's not on the field for all the snaps, as Tomlin indicated, who's going to be wearing the green dot in his absence? And I thought a guy like Cam Sutton might make the most sense because he's got a great football IQ. That's a big reason why they drafted him. He blew the team away with his knowledge when they met with him in pre-draft stuff. And he's a guy that's going to play closer to the line of scrimmage than, say, a Minkah Fitzpatrick, where communication might be harder if he's 15, 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So either Spillane or Vince, and then maybe Cam Sutton if neither of those linebackers are on the field.
Yeah, and look, you can't have these guys run around chasing helmets,
right?
From one series to the next and all like that. That's why, I guess it's not out of the question that Vince is the one. But if he's not going to be on, well, here's the thing too that kind of plays into this as well. As Mike Tomin said during his press conference, he doesn't expect this team to have to play a lot of sub-package football in this game. So maybe that does set up, at least in this initial game, week by week here, that maybe you do have Vince Williams. Maybe you're going to play a lot of base in this, and maybe that's going to call for Vince Williams being on the field a lot. And then when you get into obvious pass situations, Vince comes off, Spillane stays on, Cam Sutton comes on. And maybe he's got a green, where's the green dot in those situations there.
Right.
So that's plausible. It's a plausible route to go, and we'll see. I think because of the game plan that they had in place, and you don't want to go changing things because Spillane probably has some level of comfort and likes to communicate or is able to communicate. That's why he got that green helmet right away once Bush went down. Now you'll have a week to kind of prepare for it. It'll be interesting to see which way this goes. It's not something I'd like to bet a lot of money on. I'll tell you that. I would hedge my bet to it being Spillane. But I'm not betting the farm on that either because I think you brought the great logistics involved in that as well too, and I think when you marry in some of the comments that Mike Tomlin said about sub package and really not, and he had a chance to really kind of commit and said, oh yeah, and yeah, it's not like you're giving away top level secrets, if you tell the media who's going to be wearing the green dot there, so him given the opportunity to just say, look, it's Spillane. Don't worry about it,
Right.
As opposed to, not committing to it leaves open the possibility that it might be somebody other than Spillane.
Yeah, the tricky part is just, if what Tomlin said is true and Spillane's not playing every single snap, then you're going to have multiple guys wearing the green dot at some point when Spillane's not on the field. But it's interesting also, Dave, because yes, they're not going to be in sub package a lot, but anything end of half, end of game stuff, 3rd and 5+ basically puts his team in their dime defense, or at least 3rd and 7+. And so there's still an inside linebacker on the field in those situations. They're in their 2-3-6 dime defense. So is Spillane not going to be on the field in those situations? Is Vince going to be? Are there going to be no inside linebackers? And again, they do a quarters type thing. That's interesting, though, because generally there still is always an inside linebacker on the field, even in some of the more obvious pass situations.
And look, Vince is a big boy. Spillane's a big boy, too, for the most part. So, in other words, you don't want to get caught too many times on defensively on the field in what we would deem kind of a smaller package, especially if Derrick Henry's on the other side of it.
But the question is, if they play dime, because they're going to play dime some amount of snaps, I would imagine, or they just skew it. So who is the inside linebacker on the field in those situations?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's hard to read in between the lines for what Tomlin said. I would think that it would be Spillane. All right.
Well, Tomlin's saying though that he's unlikely to play every single snap, which would. In what snaps would he come off? He wouldn't come off in base. I don't think he would come off in nickel, so it would be dime, I would think.
Well, I mean, if you're going to have a linebacker on the field and one of them is not Spillane, that only leaves you one other one.
Right, Vince, or neither. Yeah, I guess. I mean, you could do Marcus Allen, or you're not going to give the green dot to UG3, I wouldn't think. But no. Yeah, just a lot of questions there in terms of some of the sub package stuff, which again may not be used a lot this week, but still will be used and certainly will be used in future weeks.
Him not taking the opportunity to just say Spillane's wearing a die, and I guess it's not a huge deal. This is probably me and maybe half of you trying to read way too much. Look, we love the minutia. I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt. We love the minutia. Don't step into minutia. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And once again, I don't. Let me ask you this: from what you saw, and let's kind of transition kind of quickly here, because I thought Tyler did a great job, great film room up this morning on the snaps that Robert Spillane had. And look, we kind of scout our new people a lot better than what we used to in years past as well too. And Tyler's kind of what you see is what you kind of get. He's not afraid to pull any punches. I think he does a great job, like most of the rest of us do on the tape. Very objective, and I think if he would have seen anything in there that turned his stomach or was a means for alarm, he would have put it in there. He did highlight one specific play against on the run that he didn't like Spillane, but that's going to obviously happen. I've looked at the tape, both the TV and the all 22 several times. I know you have too. So with that, what did you? I mean, is it okay to think that Spillane, what our initial thoughts were that Spillane played a good game in relief of Bush? I still feel that way. In fact, I'm a little bit more confident in him after going a little bit deeper into it now. Does Spillane deserve a shot to be that guy?
Sure, absolutely. I think Tyler is our Robert Spillane, and Robert Spillane is Tyler. They're very as advertised people, where they just kind of come up and they do great work whenever their name is called upon. So I think Spillane is basically the same dude I've watched at training camp and preseason on special teams last year, and then what I saw in the second half of the Browns game. He's physical. He's a downhill guy. He's a great tackler. He's not immobile. Again, he's not Devin Bush. Few people are, but he can move a little bit, and some of that was displayed in the article that Tyler wrote. So he's deserving of being next man up. We'll see how he's tested and everything. And just to put a bow on the discussion we were having a moment ago, yeah, I'm interested in the green dot, but I'm less concerned in focusing on, okay, who has the green dot, and more just thinking about the division of labor of if Spillane's not out there, is Vince going to be the dime linebacker or neither, or what the route is. So I'm really interested to see how that division of labor works from a snap count perspective, more so than I am in a green dot perspective.
And look, whatever linebacker is on the field in some of these sub-package situations, assuming there is one, the way the Titans utilize their tight ends, we're gonna have a few questions probably answered as far as some coverage aspects here, right? By Monday morning.
Sure. Johnny Smith, Ferkser, as you mentioned on Monday's show, had a big week last week. They got some tight ends that can be matchup problems. And so they're going to go after these guys. They're going to see what Spillane is like in coverage. And if maybe they play McNichols a little bit more, or they got a rookie in Darrington Evans who ran, I think, a 4.43 at the Combine out of App State. It's a really athletic running back. So we'll find out a lot more about Spillane very quickly.
All right, kind of mopping up just the topic in general. Obviously, they tried to pin Tomlin down past lunchtime yesterday.
That's a great quote.
Huh?
It was a great quote from Tomlin.
And people are already trying to take it too far, and that's where I'm going with this. They tried to pin him down and say, look, basically in so many words, are you going to go try to find somebody off the street or via a trade to replace Devin Bush in the next couple of weeks? And Tomlin, in so many words, I thought he answered it just as you expect he would. Look, we're looking, and so he said, I'm not looking past lunch. I thought it was a great quote too, but in so many aspects, we're not looking past this next game because, look, the injury bug can hit. You don't know what's going to happen in a game, and that's what Tomlin said, essentially said, and that's the bulk of what needs to be focused on. Is there anything in Tomlin's response to that question that leads you to believe, oh, Tomlin's not shutting the door. Oh, this definitely means in the next couple of weeks this team's going to go shopping on the trade market for an inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not from anything from Tomlin's comments you could cobble together. But as Tomlin always says, one of his other phrases, you have a plan, but you better be light on your feet. So they're going to go with this group for this week with Spillane and whatever combination otherwise they put together. And if they perform well, they'll keep it rolling. And if they need to make a change in the next 2 weeks or so, maybe they do. But for now, for Sunday's game, which is all that matters, they're going to go with Spillane and kind of go from there.
And for those of you listening out there, there's some people throwing around some stupid, crazy names, in my opinion. Miles Jack. I mean, come on, that's not happening. Just look at his contract. There's no way a Miles Jack is going to come to Pittsburgh. And Deion Jones is another guy from Atlanta. I see people talking about. There's no way, in my opinion, that can happen due to the contract situation there. I guess Avery Williamson, could be a possibility. Remember, that guy hasn't been totally brilliant in coverage, I don't think, most of his career. And on top of it, he suffered this. He's coming off of an ACL last preseason as well too. He looks okay overall. But I mean, just 1 year removed from that. And really, the one, if you look at what the Steelers do when it comes to trade markets and all like that, it's generally people that they like and know and have had interest in the past there. And a lot of times it's guys that have been in their own kitchen, if you will. And if you want to really start connecting some of the dots, you would think maybe a Gerard Davis in Detroit would be the most reasonable. He's a guy that's been in their kitchen. He's a guy that they seemingly had interest in a couple years ago in the draft and all like that at the pro day, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to start whittling this thing down to the non-clickbait stuff that's out there, I don't know. I think you'd whittle it down to Avery Williamson and Gerard Davis, and I think that's where the list ends when it comes to trade possibilities. And even that, as I've said, I'll be shocked if they make a move that way.
I agree. I think those are the two names that if you made us choose some outside people make the most amount of sense. Williamson last year was deal. Jets are a fire sale. They just traded McClendon, and Davis, a former first-round pick. Good combine numbers, testing athletically overall, not playing a whole lot with Detroit right now. Those are the only two names that really – Hassan Reddick would make sense, but he is playing more with the Cardinals. I don't think they're going to be really selling pieces right now, so I don't really see that as the better fit than Davis. But overall, again, they're going to go into Sunday with this group, and we'll go from there.
No, obviously, anything can happen in the game. That both of these linebackers, or one of them lays an egg, the next week or two, then maybe you reevaluate everything. But the strength is in the pack, as Mike Tomin likes to say. And I think this is a lot different situation than it was several years ago with the whole Ryan Shazier. You got a higher quality pedigree defense here. You play a lot differently defensively overall. I think, and I just think it's an entirely different situation than it was several years ago with Shazier than it is this year with Devin Bush.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Also, on the injury report note, Mike Tomlin said Mike Hilton with a shoulder. Derek Watt did re-aggravate that hamstring injury, so he did not finish out the game. Looks like Deontay Johnson, David DeCastro should be back at practice today. We're going to get the injury report out maybe as we're doing this podcast live for us, and that Stefan Wisniewski still working his way back, but going to let the practice status kind of be his guy in terms of whenever he gets activated officially from injured reserve.
Yeah, and I don't know which way to. I mean, he painted a nice picture with Deontay and DeCastro, right? So once again, if neither one of those guys are able to, if they're unable to go full to start the week, that's not a great start with either one of those. So Wednesday's going to be, I think, normally it's Friday's more of a telling day, but I mean, if after missing last week's game, those guys can't get back on the practice field on a Wednesday, that's not going to be a good sign.
Well, even if they're limited, I think that's at least positive. They can go limited, full. That is still, I think, a plausible path to playing Sunday.
So I don't know which way to lean there just yet. But as far as where Watt's hamstring's not going to get better until he sits down a game or two. So he might be destined to be down again, and that would probably result in maybe a guy like Trey Edmonds coming back up for a second game there. Obviously, if Johnson's able to go, then you would not need Deion Kane back. I would not think on the 53 for the weekend there, like he was this past week there. So. Those, Johnson and DeCastro, obviously the names to watch. And as far as Watt goes and Mike Hilton, the good thing about Hilton is Mike Tomlin talking about, not playing as much sub package. So maybe you wouldn't need him as much, but we'll have to just see. He was in a lot of pain when he got off the ground after he hit and Hunt in the backfield on that play there. So. I don't know which way to lean on any of these guys other than Watt. I would venture a guess that I don't think Derek Watt's going to play, and that's about the only one I have any confidence in maybe predicting.
Yeah, I don't think Watt's going to go either. I think DeCastro and Johnson are more likely to play than not at this point, and Hilton feels like a true question mark until we can start getting some injury report status. If Hilton can't go, then Cam Sutton will be the slot corner in nickel, and then in dime last week, they were playing Sutton in really kind of his standard dime backer role with Steven Nelson kicking to the slot spot and Justin Lane making his first appearance at right cornerback on 3 dime snaps against Cleveland.
And obviously, we'll talk more in depth on Friday. We'll have a better, three more.
Hmm.
All the injury reports, or two of the injury reports, will be out by then. So we'll be able to hopefully maybe try to read the tea leaves a little bit better once Friday's show rolls around there. So overall, not bad. I mean, losing Devin Bush obviously is crushing. As far as that goes there, but you're going to lose guys throughout the season there, so just hope you kind of keep that number limited there. But overall, when I think back to a couple years ago with Ryan Shazier, I think this defense is better equipped to handle a
Hmm.
loss such as that than they were with losing Ryan Shazier.
100%. I agree with you there. Dave, one other Steeler this team may be parting with at some point, at least he's got a pretty short leash, not because of injury, is punter Dustin Colquitt. We knew that, I think this came in Monday, actually, during our live stream over on YouTube. The team is visiting, or at least has visited, with our old friend Jordan Berry, brought in for a visit along with linebacker Ray Wilborn. But Berry, of course, is the name of note, and obviously Dustin Colquitt has not punted well this year. He's got the worst average since his rookie season back in 05 with the Chiefs. He's got the worst net average in football right now. He's, I think, tied for the worst net average in football right now, and did not have a very good game against Cleveland on Sunday. And so no move has been made yet, but the pressure's certainly been turned up on Dustin Colquitt in that punting unit.
Is there a possibility we see Corliss get? I mean, why do you even have him around? You know.
Yeah,
I understand the whole
COVID
emergency
concern.
COVID thing, blah blah blah. But if he's good enough to serve in that role, you know, uh, why not sign Jordan Berry to the practice squad
True.
if he'd have it? And at this point now, I'd be okay watching you try to boot a couple, Alex.
I think I'm left-footed like Colquitt. I can make
Okay,
that
well,
work.
there you go. You add that element to it. Look, Colquitt has not been good. I think we're starting to see now. I think it's just a dead leg with him now.
Yeah, he's what,
Uh,
38?
he's up there and he's punted quite a few balls during
Mm-hmm.
his time, and really, if not for him and that brilliant bat snap hold, we wouldn't have anything hardly good to say about him right now at this point. It was like like he did magic on that hold the other day that we talked about, that bad snap, the way he just kind of dribbled that thing right back up there. But unfortunately that's really the only positive that we have about him. So look, I think with Barry, so many days have got to pass for the whole COVID thing, right?
Right, yeah. So this was a visit, not a workout. Obviously, you don't really need to work out. Barry, you know what you have. He's punted from 15 to 19 with the team. So we'll see. Maybe it was just kind of let's get a look at Barry and maybe give Colquitt a little heads up that, hey, we better see some improvement here and fast. But as of yet, no signing has been made.
And they also brought in an old Ball State or a former undrafted free agent out of Ball State, safety / linebacker, really played most of his career, I think, at linebacker, Ray Wilborn, right?
Yeah, Maction kid, linebacker that switched to safety his senior year. Where was he with before Pittsburgh? Atlanta?
Atlanta.
Was it Atlanta? Yeah, and was with them before getting cut at final cutdowns. Again, has not been signed either, but some extra depth potentially if they need to make some practice squad moves. If whenever Devin Bush goes on IR officially and maybe someone gets called up or whatever the domino effect there may be. But with Colquitt, I think the only two people who are in Colquitt's corner right now is Cam Kennedy and Chris Boswell, saying Kennedy's bailing him out in some of those snaps, and Boswell's been able to kick a couple of those too because of the good holds from Colquitt. But it's been ugly, and it probably won't get better once the weather gets real bad at Heinz Field in December.
I agree. Look, I mean, here we are. I mean, it's still a little bit early in the day. We can still have a move happen here, and then by the time this podcast ends, we'll have to see there. I couldn't help myself, and because I'm not good with time management, sometimes I get lost over in the tape end of it. I had to go look at some tape on that Ray Wilborn kid. Loves to hit. Loves
Does
to
he?
hit. Yes, loves to hit.
What's his build like? Because he's listed 6'4", 226. Does he look about that? Look like a big kid?
He's a bigger kid. He comes off as a little bit bigger kid, but a little slight,
Right.
on top of it there. So obviously I didn't watch any Atlanta tape or anything, well, there was no preseason tape,
Yeah.
Atlanta tape to watch on him, period there. But just looking at his Ball State stuff, there. The thing in about the 5 minutes that I watched was that kid loves to hit. So as far as the other aspect, I haven't pulled any full Ball State games or anything like that. There's no need to yet because he hasn't been signed. But as we said earlier the other day there, I would expect them to add a linebacker body, but I would expect that body to probably be a young kid on either the practice squad or somebody to help out on special teams, younger as well too. So we still have a few days left to go in this week. We'll have to see what happens there. But I can understand why, and he was also at the NFLPA Bowl as well too. So there's another link there.
There you
so
go.
you know that they like those all-star kids as well too, and he is a linebacker / safety. I think he only played 1 year at safety at Ball State. His final year, I think, is when he made the move to safety there. So, but he can get down the field there.
Yeah, we'll see if they bring him into the practice squad. And Tomlin also mentioned that the punt game has to improve. That's something he said. And speaking of which, anything else that Tomlin said at Tuesday's presser that was kind of noteworthy in your mind, Dave?
No, I thought there was one other quote that he had there, but it's not coming to mind. Maybe it'll come to mind as we move along here.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I do want to talk about the All-22 from the game against Cleveland and kind of our thoughts. Not that we've gone through the tape, but I think before we do that, we should talk to our buddy David Beauclair and get his pulse on the Tennessee Titans, the 5-0 Tennessee Titans. So we'll throw it to David Beauclair here in a moment. You can follow him on Twitter at Beauclair Sports. He covers the Titans for SI.com. So let's talk to David, and then we will come back to the Terrible Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and as promised, it seems like just a few days ago we had David Beauclair on from Sports Illustrated SI.com, who covers the Titans. And obviously, the last time we had him on, we thought there was going to be a game between the Steelers and the Titans. That game obviously got postponed until this coming weekend, weekend 7 of the NFL. The two teams 5-0. Still has a lot of headlines associated with this game, with them both being 5-0. So with that, we're pleased to have back on the Terrible Podcast David Beauclair. You can follow David on Twitter at Beauclair Sports. That's BOCLAIR Sports. And make sure you reach out to him and tell him hello and thank him for coming on the podcast. With that long introduction, David, how are you? Happy Wednesday to you.
I'm good, Dave. How are you doing?
Doing good. We're doing great here, and we're excited to have you back on, and really excited about this game that looks like it's going to take place here on Sunday in Nashville at Nissan Stadium between the Titans and the Steelers. David, let's first start pick up where we left off there the last time we talked to you. Obviously, we didn't know at the time that the game was going to ultimately be postponed there. A lot has come out about the actions of the Titans players and protocol, and the NFLPA has been busy investigating, and I think the latest is we saw some reports yesterday, I think, from some of the major media guys saying that, look, there are probably going to be some fines put in place. Obviously, no forfeits, no draft pick suspensions, anything like that. What's your overall takeaway now? You covered it probably closer than anybody there, and what do you feel? How do you think the Titans handled themselves throughout this, and what do you think about the reaction from the league so far?
But I think ultimately they're going to be judged by how they came out of it, which is really surprisingly well. When you talk about beating Buffalo in a matchup of undefeated teams with about a practice and a half under their belts in order to do that, come back 5 days later, win a game against Houston that looked like it was getting completely away from them in the second half to come back and do it. All the other stuff. Did they plan to or knowingly, I guess, violate league protocols by getting together for some organized workouts as position groups and whatnot? Did they flaunt the league's protocols when they were in the practice facility with masks and things like that? Ultimately, none of that is going to matter. The league is going to find some fault with the Titans. The league has shown it's going to have very little tolerance for anything related to COVID protocols. But the fact is that the Titans got through it. They've been hit harder than any other team has been hit to this point. Certainly not. They're not the only team that has been dealing with positive COVID tests, but they've gotten through it to this point, and now they're set up for. I'm sure you've seen the stat too. What looks like a an effectively is an AFC championship game, if you will, because what is it? Any time that two teams that have met week 7 or later where both are undefeated, the winner ends up in the Super Bowl. So we're going to save all ourselves a lot of time and stress from this point, I guess, after Sunday afternoon now.
That's right. We could go ahead and make travel plans and all like that. You're right. Look, David, I've said all along, and it hasn't obviously been popular with the with our listeners and all, and the Steelers fan base. I said right out of the chute that there's no way the Titans were going to be forced to forfeit any game. Heck, there's never been a forfeit in the NFL, and to have one come in during a pandemic type situation like this, sure, were they probably negligent in some of these workouts and protocols? Yeah. I think without a doubt there's probably enough proof of that. All in all, though, I think the NFL, outside of people saying that maybe they didn't have as good a plan put in place for maybe a week 18 or what have you, I think overall they've handled this kind of as expected, and I would expect the Titans to be fined heavily. Have they handled this? Have they handled this right, David?
Yeah. I mean, they have, guys have said it's easy for people to speculate who have been on the outside, but I mean, we heard from day one of training camp, for example, that Dennis Kelly, the Titans NFLPA rep, guys were laughing about the fact that he was, the term dictatorial was thrown around about the mask policy. And, Dennis Kelly is the starting right tackle. He's a 6'6", 325-pound guy. When a 6'6", 325-pound guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, get your mask up," all the time, I'm sure guys in that building were paying attention. And so we heard from day one that there were people involved in that organization who were taking things very seriously. When it comes to the organized workouts that took place, that was this is, I'm sure, much like you have there with the Steelers. This is a highly motivated, highly excitable group of guys who are really into the opportunity that they feel like they have this year. And these were guys who were on their way to the facility on a Tuesday morning. They get text messages saying, "Nope, if you're on your way in, turn around and go home. We're closing it down today. But we've got some things to deal with." But in their minds, they still had a game coming up that Sunday, and whatever, what they did was not a sort of, "Oh, we're going to stick it to the league or screw the league," or anything like that sort of approach. It's like, well, we just have to do what we have to do to get ready for this Pittsburgh game on Sunday. And so that's what a couple of the position groups did. And, the league found out about it right away. Coaches reiterated the next day, like, "Hey, you guys are not to be together." And then it was obviously a couple of days after that sort of the details started to get to those of us in the media. So it seemed like sort of this long drawn out process when really it was guys didn't want to hear, "Hey, don't get together." In their minds it was, well, okay, we have to adapt. We have to find a way to get through this. And that's, that was sort of, I think, a natural, honest reaction that most teams would have had if they were the first ones to have their facility shut down in midseason.
All right. Before I hand it over to Alex here for a couple of questions, when you look at the health of the Titans overall, obviously huge loss this past week, losing starting left tackle Taylor Lewan to an ACL injury. It sounds like Jonnu Smith, their top tight end, at least in touchdown catches, is dealing with a minor ankle injury. However, as I like to say, that it sounds like they're getting Corey Davis got Corey Davis back from IR this week, and I think the news just broke not long ago that Adoree Jackson, top cornerback, a huge add back for them, designated to return. What is the health of this team overall? What is the injury report going to look like this afternoon? And tell us about how big a news that is to have Adoree Jackson and Corey Davis back.
Well, Adoree Jackson, you're talking about obviously 2 first-round picks from the 2017 draft right there. That's a big deal. Adoree's probably not going to play. He's been designated for return, which starts his 3-week clock in which he can practice with the team and be evaluated. maybe he'll be ready to go this week, but I think it's more likely that it'll be another week or two before he's on the field. Corey Davis is a guy got off to the best start of his career, which is not really saying a whole lot. He's been a guy who's typically injured during training camp in the preseason, gets off to slow starts, plays some of his better football late in the year. But the Titans have had a different leading receiver through each of the 5 games. Corey Davis was the first one in the opener against Denver. He's missed the last 2 games with COVID. Adam Humphries, one of those guys, missed one of those games with COVID. All those guys are back now. Ryan Tannehill has his full complement of receiving threats, assuming Jonnu Smith can get out there. And Jonnu's a really big part of this offense. He's a guy that he's in a contract year in his own right. He spent a lot of time with Tannehill together. They're both based in South Florida during the off season. So when there was no OTAs, no mini camps, that sort of thing, those two got together almost daily and threw together. And you've sort of seen the benefits of that in the early part of this season. They seem to have a connection, particularly in the red zone, that has been a real difference maker. So if he's anything close to full speed, that'll be big for this offense. And other than that, I would suspect outside of the Taylor Lewan injury, this team's in pretty good shape. They got roughed up a little bit with the Buffalo game, but managed to get most of the guys pieced back together. I mean, there was their first practice for Houston last week. There were, I think it was 17 guys who didn't practice, but not all because they couldn't. Some of it was they, with the short week, they just wanted to give guys every opportunity to recover, and they seem to do that effectively. So this is going to be as healthy as this team has been in a while. The big question is what is the cumulative effect of playing 3 games in 12, 13 days, whatever it is here, that how does that add up, and what effect is that going to take on them here as they're concluding a really tough stretch for them?
That's a great point.
To finish up the injury perspective, who's going to replace Lewan at left tackle? Is it going to be Isaiah Wilson, the rookie, Ty Sambraio, the veteran, and how much is that going to affect the pass pro that's done a great job of keeping Ryan Tannehill upright?
Yeah, Mike Vrabel hasn't said specifically, but every indication is that it's Ty Sambraio, a guy who started the first 3 games of his career with Denver in 2016 at left tackle, then got hurt and has sort of been, a swing guy ever since. I don't think he has started at left tackle since, but Lewan has had sort of a funny year. He has missed at least 11 snaps in 4 of the 5 games he's played, including he's missed time in each of the last 3. He tweaked his right knee in the opener against Denver. The Minnesota game, he hurt his left shoulder. The Buffalo game, he hurt his right shoulder, and then we were back to the right knee with this game against Houston, and now of course he's out for the year. So Ty Sambraio has been the guy who has stepped in every time, and so it's not going to be a completely unfamiliar feeling for that front 5 in terms of how they work together, how they communicate, those sorts of things. Obviously, you saw in the Houston game, the second snap after Lewan came out, the Texans put J.J. Watt over there on the matched up against Sambraio. He beat him one-on-one for a sack and forced fumble that really turned the nature of that game for a little while. So from the Titans' perspective, they're going to have to do some things differently in terms of their protection and where they provide help and that sort of thing, but it's not something that they're probably going to have to figure out as the game goes along. They'll have a pretty good idea going into this contest of how and when they're going to have to give Sambraio some help.
Mike Vrabel's a name that's gotten a lot of talk in the national conversation with the very impressive job that he's done last week against Houston, that brilliant play of putting 12 men out there to create the too many men that gave Houston the first down, that they probably don't win the game unless he actually does that chestnut checkers type move. So he's a guy with obviously a football background, great player in the NFL, linebacker, first with the Steelers, then with the Patriots. What makes him different than other coaches you've covered? Because he does have this blend of old school, but also this new school, really sharp mind mentality.
Yeah, he does a really good job of sort of understanding what the job is, I think, relative to some of the guys who have preceded him here. Like he knows that it matters what he says in the media. He knows that it matters what you say to a guy when you pass him walking down the hall. He sort of works to create this atmosphere throughout the building, and it's not. He doesn't look at you and say, well, I'm the head coach, I say this, deal with it. He is one of those guys who has a way of making people want to work for him, and he's very inclusive. It's not like I want my team to be left alone. I want, he creates this sense within the building. In fact, somebody asked him a couple of days ago a question. I can't remember exactly what the question was, but he started referencing the guy who's in there emptying trash cans at 4 a.m. and a particular cafeteria worker. And he does a really nice job creating the sense that, hey, we're all in this together, and it's not just the 53 players in the locker room, and you guys need to appreciate the opportunity you have. You guys need to appreciate the people who are around you, and then just getting into his actual coaching of the game. He's one of the best I've been around in terms of self-analysis. A lot of guys, when they become a head coach, they figure that means because they had it figured out, they knew how to get there, they know how to do the job, and they go. But Mike Vrabel made some mistakes in game management and some of his attitudes and how he handled things early on. But you could tell he was always sort of questioning himself. Should I have done anything differently there? If yes, what should I have done? And now we're at a point where he is very comfortable. And to your point, Alex, about the creating the extra timeout with an intentional too many men on the field penalty. One of his favorite things is to say that those who know the rules can take advantage of the rules. And there's been a couple of instances where he has been able to take advantage of the rules. And it's not just him. He has a staff member in the press box who sort of, for lack of a better term, it's like his version of a baseball bench coach. The guy who's just thinking situationally all the time and saying, hey, be aware of this. Hey, this could be coming up. Make sure you remember we discussed this. So he gets some help in that regard, but he is really good at sort of knowing when to take advantage of certain things.
Yeah, give that guy a raise. A question for you before I turn things over to Dave. The overall matchup, one of the biggest ones, just in the way it was for Pittsburgh versus Cleveland last week, is Derrick Henry and the Titans' rushing attack versus the Steelers' run defense. I know Henry's a tough guy to really take out of the game, but let's just assume for a second the Steelers can. Do you think the Titans' offense is capable of still putting up points and winning a game if, hypothetically, Derrick Henry in this run game has basically been hindered?
I do. I mean, you just look at the numbers that Tannehill has put up through the first 5 weeks this season. He's completing almost 70% of his passes. His yards per attempt is up, almost where it was last year. He hasn't been sacked a whole lot. This offense is not turning the ball over. Like I said, there's been a different leading receiver every single game. So this is not a one-man show. And in fact, it was interesting. Sunday against Houston was the first time the Titans sort of came out throwing the ball in their opening drive, and they sort of threw the ball to set up the run, whereas the first 4 weeks it was more run to throw, and it must have had some sort of an effect because the one thing that had been missing from the run game through the first 4 weeks was the big plays. Derrick Henry's longest run was 16 yards, and I think he only had 3 or 4 runs of 10 to 16 yards. It was a real grinded out, workman-like running game until he got to Houston, and there were several big gains in that one. So I think that'll give Pittsburgh a little something to think about at the start too, especially as we said, all of Ryan Tannehill's targets should be ready to play in this game.
I thought Vrabel's response the other day when asked about that timeout. I mean, the guy just how he kept a straight face during that, I do not know. Just basically said, "Look, we got to cut down on the penalties," in so many words. I wish I had the quote in front of me, but you got to take your hat off and hand it to him when it comes to that. When you look at what this one thing that we picked on what Mike Tomlin said yesterday during his press conference was talking about how he doesn't expect his defense to have to play as much sub-package football against the Titans because they are kind of an old school. They like to use a lot of two tight ends on the field, especially in early down situations and non-end of half type situations. And I think I pulled the personnel groupings on the Titans and on 1st and 10 this year so far. Yeah, I mean, I think only 46 out of I forget how many 140 something plays or something like that. They've had only 46 of them. They've had 3 wide receivers on the field, which means look, they're going heavy tight ends and a fullback or whatnot. The rest of those times, they're not going to try to outthink themselves. Talking about the Titans here in this aspect, right? They will go with their identity and line up those big uglies, if you will, and go heavy personnel and do what they do right out and shoot. Correct?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do have the quote in front of me, so
okay.
I could give it to you. When Mike Vrabel was asked on Monday about that, whether he went for or whether he intentionally created a penalty to buy a timeout there, he said, and I quote, "We have to do a better job with penalties. We had 7 of them, I think, pretty uncharacteristic. We had a few on offense. We have to be better in all areas. And I think the penalties are one thing that we focus on, communicating, trying to give ourselves the best chance to win a football game."
That's very Bill Belichick, but
yeah.
I mean, look how he did it with a straight face. Because I watched that on, watched that kind of live there, and I was like, I got a chuckle out of it. But carry on, that's great.
Yeah, I did too. I was actually watching him for the smile, which never came. And there was a follow up, which he said in part too. We need to not give up 9 yards when they get down near the goal line too. So he did a good job of that. But to your question, Dave, about personnel groups, the Titans don't get real crazy. What they do is they give you a lot of different looks with the same personnel group. So they'll have a particular run play, for example, with 2 tight ends. Well, one play, the tight ends might line up one on either side of the line. The next time they might line up together on one end with one offset. The next time they might line up, with one of them lined up as a fullback there. So they try to give you they try not to give you the same look very often in terms of what they want to do, but they will kind of run the same plays. They'll do a lot of obviously play action stuff, and yeah, I mean this is not a team that's deep at wide receiver, if you will. You've got the top 3 in Corey Davis, AJ Brown, and Adam Humphries, and beyond that, you've got guys who are easily replaceable. The fourth one is a guy named Khalif Raymond, who doubles as their return man. And Khalif Raymond is little. He's fast. He makes some plays, but he's never going to be a guy who's going to be 1,000-yard receiver in this league or anything like that. And beyond him, it's guys like Cameron Batson and Cody Hollister who are practice squad guys who are getting the game day elevation this year. So it's not like they have a bunch of different options that way. Their better options are with the tight end group, where you have Jonnu Smith, who's a big body but can catch the ball and can run and does a lot of run after the catch stuff. You've got Anthony Ferkser, who's a little bit smaller and more the receiving tight end, who's coming off the best game of his career, and you've got Michael Pruitt, who is sort of the traditional tight end, where you line him up on the end of the line. He can block, but he'll still contribute a little bit in the passing game too. Actually scored the first touchdown of the season for the Titans. So that's where more of the creativity comes in terms of what they do with the tight ends, and they'll do. We're at the point in the season, for example, they'll give a look, say, with Michael Pruitt out there, that they've given this exact look 7 times, and every time it's been a run. Well, now they'll they'll be liable to throw him the ball. And as I say, he's a guy who can catch it when it comes his way. That's where the personnel groupings sort of factor into the Titans scheme.
When you flip over to the defensive side of football, and we talked a little bit about this unit with you the last time we had you on there, but since then, I guess my question is, look, Alex and I are both big fans of Kevin Byard and all like that, and we're really familiar with Kenny Vaccaro and all, and everybody knows who Malcolm Butler is, obviously from his time previously with the Patriots and all. The secondary seems to be okay there, but when you look at the kind of the front seven, if you will, of the Titans, I think only like 7 sacks so far through the season, and really as a defensive unit, I think only 6, 7, 8 takeaways or something like that so far this season. Sell them to me why they might be able to match up well with the Steelers offense on Sunday.
Well, the takeaways, they have 9. They have the same number as the Steelers. But the big thing is that the offense before Sunday against Houston had committed just 1 turnover. So the Titans had, it's not a huge number of takeaways, but the Titans went into last weekend leading the league in turnover ratio. So that has sort of been the bigger thing. The defense simply has not played well, and particularly, at least not as well as expected, and particularly the front seven. There was a lot of attention paid to the pass rush this offseason when you talk about the additions of Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley. Through 5 games, Harold Landry, last year's sack leader, has 1. Clowney has none. Beasley has none. That is a big disappointment. That leads to the fact that this team has not gotten off the field very well in third down. They, in fact, going into last Sunday, they were last in the league at having allowed 60% in terms of third down allowed. So they're a little bit better right now at 57.8, but it's still not. It's still not a good number by any stretch of the imagination. So they need to be better. And where that's showing up is that they're giving up long touchdown drives or long scoring drives in general. There's been a couple of field goals in there too, but there's been now at least once in every single game this season, and more often more than once, where the defense has given up a scoring drive of 10 plays or more. So there's a real opportunity to sort of wear on this defense and keep them on the field and run the clock, keep the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands, those sorts of things that this team has to get fixed, and it keeps coming up, quite honestly, that it has to get fixed.
My last question for you, then I'll turn it back over to Dave to finish things out. This defense only has 7 sacks in 5 games. Only Jeffrey Simmons has more than 1 sack this season. I know they've only played, 5 games, 1 fewer than a majority of the rest of the league. But what's the reason for that sack total being so low?
They just haven't gotten there. And, Beasley's a guy I mentioned a minute ago. Beasley, has sort of been he's sort of been a disappointment from day one. He didn't show up for the start of training camp. Said sometime later there were some things he had to get worked out, and they got him worked out and moved past him. He's never really expanded on what that means, but he played less than a dozen snaps now Sunday against Houston. So it's this is a guy who's just not doing a whole lot. Clowney, on the other hand, is Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, it's the story of his career where the statistics aren't overwhelming. They don't blow you away by any stretch of the imagination. But the word that you're going to hear from him over and over and over again is disruptive, and every team talks about before the game and after the game that he was disruptive in there. I mean, he's only been credited with 10 tackles, but he does have 6 quarterback pressures. 3 of his tackles are tackles for loss. He's contributed to an interception or 2 by forcing the quarterback to make a quick throw. He's actually gotten his hands on 3 passes himself. So, Clowney's a guy who's getting some things done, but this team's just not getting to the quarterback. You mentioned Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons is as a guy. His job is not necessarily to get to the quarterback, but he is an absolute animal up there. A guy who's playing great, playing every bit like the top 10 talent people thought he was last year. If you recall, he had the pre-draft knee injury, which scared people away, and the Titans ended up getting him at number 19 overall. They felt like they got a real steal there, and at this point it looks that way. But they need to get something from those edge guys. It's quite simply not been enough, and there's not anybody in that building who would say otherwise.
David, we had the old fungible running back discussion the last time you were on there, and when you look at, if there's one guy that's probably not as fungible as the rest of them, it's Henry. And I referred to him even late last year in the playoffs and all. You just watched some of those games. Man, the guy's like a thoroughbred horse, man. I mean, just the power that he runs with and the gracefulness that he runs with and the speed that he runs with. It's the old Planet theory, when it comes to players like that. Very, very impressive on tape for sure. All right, you've got kind of the powerful force against the immovable object, I guess would be the best way to kind of set this game up on Sunday here. We've had a lot of time to get ready for it and talk about it. Alex and I will get into the tape a little bit more the next few days and break it down a little bit more on our side for the listeners on Friday. In the meantime, where are you now? A couple weeks removed from this, from the last time that we talked to you. Obviously, an important game for both teams here. What's going to happen Sunday at Nissan Stadium in Nashville?
I think it's we talked about the Taylor Lewan injury and Ty Sambraio stepping in there, but this is a bad game for the Titans not to have their best offensive line. I really thought going into this stretch, this post-COVID stretch, if you will, where they play a game on Tuesday, come back Sunday, and then again the next Sunday. Excuse me, I'm actually getting over my own little bout of COVID.
Bless your heart.
I tested positive almost 2 weeks ago myself, no. But fortunately, I haven't had a bad go with it relative to a lot of other people. But this was the game. Even if it hadn't been Pittsburgh, I would have thought, best case scenario for the Titans is they win those first 2, and then it sort of catches up with them what they did. I feel like you see that all the time with teams when they're put in a difficult situation. You can sort of get through it. And then as things get back to normal, you sort of start to feel the effects of, oh, golly, I can't believe we did that. So, assuming Pittsburgh comes in here with the type of defensive effort that Pittsburgh typically gives, and given the emergence of Chase Claypool and the resurgence of that Pittsburgh passing game in general this year, it seems to me like this is a really tall order for the Titans to pull off this one as well. So I think the Steelers, the thing the Steelers are going to want to do, I think, is start fast, get a lead, and sort of play on that sense of fatigue maybe that the Titans don't want to admit exists, and I think Houston probably would have liked to do the same thing, but what happened was, the third play of the game, the Titans forced an interception. 2 plays later, they throw a touchdown pass, and right away they got momentum that carried them into the second half and had them set up for, when things did go sideways in that game, they had a little bit of a cushion. I think if Pittsburgh can get off to a good start in this game, they can probably have a chance to sort of pull away and make it look like there's a bigger difference between these teams than there probably really is.
Have an early thought on the score?
Let's say 30-16 Steelers.
Oh, okay, wow. And we only hold our guests to those if they're wrong. So,
Right, exactly.
hey, David, look, we didn't know that we're battling the COVID and all like that. And look, we have always on this show kind of, as long as we've had it, kind of prided ourselves of having, the best beat writers for teams, when we have them on weekly. And look, we knew that years ago, back when we had you on, the last time that the Steelers and Titans got together. We appreciate you just, these last couple weeks and the circumstances and everything, coming back on with us so soon. And man, your info's top notch, David. And I know I appreciate it. I know Alex does. I know our listeners do as well. So just promise us if these two teams somehow get together later on in the season, we can do this another time.
You guys have my number. You call me anytime.
Fantastic. And with that, thanks for being back on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
All right, boys. Everybody have a good day. We'll talk to you.
And again, our thanks to David Beauclair. You can follow him on Twitter at Beauclair Sports, and hope he feels better. Did not realize he had COVID, so glad he's recovering and feeling pretty good now.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, we are blessed to have him back on this soon. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people reached out on him to Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and look, we had even several people demand that we played the interview with him, that we had in the can there. And so I'm glad we did, and we put it out on that following Saturday there, and just for him to come back this quick and all that's happened, it really shows a lot on his side and him being sick on top of it there. So get on the Twitter machine if you would not mind, folks, like a lot of you do, and at Beauclair Sports, and let him know you appreciate the time he spent with us. And hopefully we'll, who knows, we'll probably have him on later on in the year if these two teams meet in the playoffs there. So once again, shout out to David Beauclair. We appreciate his time.
Yep, absolutely. His insight and knowledge of the team is unparalleled, and so definitely a big help in getting us prepared for Sunday's game. All right, Dave, let's talk about last Sunday's game, though. The Pittsburgh Steelers winning 38-7 over the Cleveland Browns. Now that the All-22 coaches tape has come out, what are some of the first couple things that have come to mind as you've rewatched the tape?
Boy, we already talked about Spillane, so there's no sense revisiting that. Really, thought he did a good job on tape, and I thought Tyler did a great job of breaking that down on the site. So with that, that obviously was a huge topic that I wanted to explore and watch his play there. Defensively, just as we thought, they jumped out on tape, on the TV tape, especially the interior guys. And when you got to the All-22, you found the same thing there, and especially against the run. They were just ferocious against the run. And I thought really it was one of your, and I don't know how quickly you put it together or what, but you had a breakdown on the over front. And I have watched several videos over the years about people trying to break down and explain over fronts and the usefulness of it. I really thought yours was simple and straight and to the point, and really a lot easier probably for folks to understand there. With how the Steelers, what an overfront is, how it was utilized by the Steelers on Sunday against the Browns, and how effective it was, and really it brings to light. We talked about Cameron Hayward and how maybe that was probably probably easily his best game of the season. And once again, by us saying that, it's not us saying that he probably the last rated guy in that front is in by no way, shape, or form any kind of a slight against Cameron Hayward. Just everybody's playing so damn good right now on this front. But I think without a doubt what the All-22 showed us and what your overfront video showed us is just how impactful Cameron Hayward was against the run, and especially in those overfronts.
It's the Steelers' best-kept secret and one of their weapons against the run, and they don't do it a whole lot. They have to do it against multiple tight end sets or two-back sets or some combination thereof, so it's not a staple, but when it's used, it is highly effective against Cleveland. Pittsburgh used their overfront, which is the Steelers' defensive line shifted to the strength of the formation. That's when you get Watt, usually as the off-ball linebacker. You'll see him flying into the A-gap usually in those moments. Pittsburgh used it 5 times against Cleveland, and it went for -6 yards, no successful plays. For the season, when teams have run against the Steelers overfront, there's been 9 carries for -1 yards, 1 touchdown, which was the Miles Sanders score in Week 5 against Philadelphia. Only 11% success rate. And Dave, I tracked the numbers since last year. So here are the numbers when teams try to run on the Steelers overfront from 2019 to present day. 43 carries, 33 yards, 1 touchdown, only 23.3% run success rate. So it is a dominant defense. It gets a defensive end, most often Cam Hayward, aligned on the tight end, and that's an obvious mismatch. And Hayward was just wrecking those guys. Hooper, Carlson, and Njoku, doesn't matter who you put on Hayward, he's going to win those battles. And so it's a really nice wrinkle. It's been highly effective, and I assume we're going to see it again this Sunday against Tennessee.
I think so, especially with how they like to use those tight ends. I don't think we will probably see a little bit heavier usage than maybe what we saw against Cleveland there. And I thought you did a great job of putting that together there. And Cam Hayward, not only against the run in those overfront situations there, just overall, I mean, we were gifted another long arm from Cam Hayward in that game. I think that one was against Joe Bitonio, right?
Yep, left guard.
There, and that was one that I remember. I like to go back and match my tweets up to the tape, my live tweets up to the tape, and I even said, "Boy, he just pushed Joe B back into the quarterback on that play." And look, Joe Bitonio's no slouch, man. One of the better left guards in the league, you know. So now you go back to last season with Quentin Nelson. You go to Bitonio this season here. Oh, Cam Hayward still got it there. And I think another thing that stuck out, and I missed this, and thankfully you caught it and put it on the Twitter machine as well too, was the fact that just how and Tyson Alulu doesn't get credit for this enough either. The way these guys sacrifice themselves on these TE stunts and all and all like that is incredible. Not only do they sacrifice themselves by carrying it out there, but they really make a habit of either hooking or grabbing a piece of trying to help somebody tuck their shirt in on the way. But I think that clip that you have on that one particular one with Bud looping in on the TE stunt there is just further testament of and look, Tuitt does it as well as any of them there. When these guys run these stunts inside, these defensive linemen, and they're not the ones looping, if they're the crasher, they make sure they get their money's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, here's a very specific thing I'll praise Cam Hayward for. He is the best crasher in football, where he is able to just, take on, shoot that gap, allow the looper, which is often Dupree, coming free, and whether that's bumping the left tackle to keep him off track, or as he did Sunday against Cleveland, being able to just subtly tug on the back of Will's jersey. He doesn't get called for holding his ref.
He was letting him know it was untucked.
Yeah, there you go. Because they almost never call. This are actually, I'm looking at the clip right now. This is a ref looking at Hayward, but they just never really look at those things. It's so quick, it's so subtle, just something they're not paying attention to, and it allows Dupree to get free on the loop. And that was the one where Dupree dove and kind of fell off Mayfield, and then Hayward came flying back in to finish the play and absolutely just destroyed Baker Mayfield, kind of that big hit that said this game is over. And so just the subtleties and that veteranship that Hayward has is really impressive. And so this whole defensive front is just playing off the charts right now.
Did you see the still shot that I had of the eight-man protection?
Yeah, against a 2-man route versus like a 4-man rush, and yeah, that was the day for Cleveland.
Unfortunately, they completed that pass.
Did they?
That was that one over on the sideline that Hayden almost had to beat out. It took a pinpoint placement over there on the sideline, and I think it was was it Jarvis?
That was Beckham on the right sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Beckham.
That ball basically caught the ball out of bounds. It was a great throw, but unfortunately they completed the pass on that play. But literally, it's easy to have put a screenshot of them. They had 8-on-4 in protection. They were so tired of Baker Mayfield getting hit in there. So without a doubt. What'd you see coverage wise?
Yeah, it was good. They were more competitive at the catch point. They were more physical, obviously making plays on the football, capitalizing, plastering whenever the play did get extended the few times that it did, even in zone coverage. They were finding someone in their window and plastering to them. Of course, the Minka pick six we broke down on Monday's show in an article Monday morning, that Robert coverage, and they used Minka a lot more closer to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he was even going to blitz. Like, they really mugged him close to that A-gap and then dropped him out and let him rob crossing the route. So, again, nothing dramatically different in terms of scheme or technique or anything like that. It was just flat out better execution.
Yeah, look, they were just getting after the quarterback too, and Cleveland had no answer to be able to slow those guys down. And even when Devin Bush had the hug, the hug kind of blitz and all, and once he sees that running back stay in and help, he can get after it as well too there. So just impressive. The numbers, the stats, the third downs, the third down numbers, the fourth down numbers, just all the way around. We saw what we were expecting that we would see on the All-22 and a little bit more, I thought, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, what about the offense for Pittsburgh? Again, I thought they won up front. I thought the whole line overall played well. Connor, I thought, had his best game of the season, creating good feet, good vision, finishing his runs. Ben praised him today, talking about he thinks he's taking his game to an all-time high, and it's hard to argue with that because this guy's playing really well right now.
I think the other thing that stuck out, and I make sure that I give some kudos because I have talked him down a little bit there, and that's Eric Ebron and his blocking.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has done a good job of committing himself on certain plays. Look, it's obvious it's not his favorite thing to do. He had to get reacquainted with what a blocking sled even was. During training camp there. But I think for the most part, they are getting every ounce out of him that they can possibly get, and he's buying into the fact that he's got to block on some of these plays. And one, he was a little bit shifty, little decoy, and caught the, hey, if you got to get creative to get the job done, have at it, man. But he clocked the linebacker, I thought, on one of those there. But really got to take your hat off and hand it to him on him kind of buying in. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. But he's buying in on that aspect of being a blocking tight end when he has to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's showing effort, and that's the fundamental key to at least have a first step in being a competent blocker. And again, leveraging angles. It's not perfect, it's not always pretty, but it's been enough to get the job done. And I think that's the phrase you use, Dave, is the important one: the buy-in. He's buying into the system, into what they're asking him to do, and he's going out there and at least giving it his best. And at least more often than not, it's working, and I'll kind of take that from Ebron as a blocker.
We have an injury report to discuss, Alex.
Right,
the first one of the of Week 7 here, as I'm getting it up off of Twitter right now. Here, let's see.
A lot of DNPs, but that's typical for a Wednesday.
Yes, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster with a knee, Mike Hilton shoulder, Derek Watt hamstring, Marquise Pouncey foot. That's a guy that Mike Tomin did not mention yesterday, was Marquise Pouncey. Devin Bush obviously with a knee, David DeCastro or Stephon Tuitt did not practice, not injury related. Ben and Tuitt not injury related. Deontay Johnson practiced fully with the back. That's a good sign there. And David DeCastro was limited with the abdomen there. So a good kind of start to the week there. Once again, the players that did not practice on Wednesday: Ben Roethlisberger, not injury related. Juju Smith-Schuster, knee. That's probably not a big concern just today, just having him rest that. Mike Hilton with a shoulder. We'll have to see where that goes. Derek Watt with a hamstring. I have a feeling we know which way that's going to go. Marquise Pouncey with a foot. Hopefully by the end of the week he'll be fine. Devin Bush will obviously end up on IR by the end of the week. And then Stephon Tuitt, not injury related. Those are your did not practice guys. Once again, Deontay Johnson did practice fully with a back, and David DeCastro was limited with an abdomen.
It's always hard to gauge the Wednesday practice report. I think tomorrow will give us a better idea. Let's make sure Johnson can stay full. He had a setback last week where he went limited to no practice, so those back issues can flare up, and hopefully he can get through the next couple of days full. We'll see where DeCastro's at tomorrow. Hopefully he's got to get in at least one full practice this week, either tomorrow and Friday, or at least on Friday. And so that'll be the key there. And then with Hilton, we'll kind of have to see if he can at least be limited tomorrow. They may just save him till Friday. But the Wednesday injury report is always kind of a day off for any guy who might even be close to needing it. So it's a little hard to gauge really who's going to be in or out this weekend.
All right, back to the all 22 and the offensive side of football. I thought for the most part, Dotson. Look, I mean, these guys aren't jumping out with like back-to-back bad performances and all. You know, obviously there was the snafu on the Garrett on the Garrett sack between Chukwuma Okorafor and Dotson on that one. But for the most part, I thought the whole line represented himself well.
Yeah, I may have to retract one of my statements. Villanueva, I might charge him with half a sack on that because he did get bull rushed back and the pocket was constricted. I'm not sure yet. I haven't done my sack breakdown, but still a half sack through the first 5 games is really impressive. Garrett, I think, played the majority of his snaps. I don't have this counted, but just my eyeball test. I think he played the majority of his snaps on Okorafor's side, so Villanueva didn't see a ton of Garrett, but still, Vernon's a good pass rusher, still saw Garrett somewhat. And so, yeah, overall, the line, I thought, did a good job of keeping Ben upright. Not that they had to throw the football a whole lot.
All right, what else stuck out to you on the all 22 for the offensive side?
I think I mentioned this Monday, but just Chase Claypool just being a freaky dude. Did we talk about that 23-yarder he had at the end of the game? Where just a freaky play, it's a 7-yard out route that he ran, and he turns that into 23 yards with the sideline next to him. I mean, just a freaky play. That guy, his change of his direction, his burst, his build-up speed, how quick he accelerates. I mean, just guys of that size should not move the way that he does. So I don't think I'm bringing any groundbreaking information with that. We've seen what he can do, but just a freaky dude going long, but also catching short and then running long.
Yeah, look, I mean, the yak alone on that play, the effort and the yak alone on that play was quite impressive. And worth detailing a little bit more. And I thought too, look, his and Ben brought it up during his press conference earlier today, doing things in with the football in the air, and getting kind of that last and showing a few of these tricks already with getting himself a little separation at the top of the route. That wasn't awful coverage on that long reception by his. Now that ball was thrown where only Chase Claypool was going to have a chance to go gadget it, if you will. Is that do you know who Inspector Gadget is?
Inspector Gadget, yeah.
Okay.
Her daughter was Penelope.
Okay.
I know Go Gadget.
Okay. All right. We're meeting on some common ground here.
Who would have known that Inspector Gadget would bring this together?
But I mean, it did look like he had kind of the telescopic arms, the Go Gadget arms on that one there. And once again, that ball was going to be. Did you go back? Did you watch the? Are you a good lip reader? If any listeners are good lip readers, did you look at that play pre-snap?
No, I don't know what you're referencing with the lip reading.
Go back to that long reception down the left sideline and watch Ben out of the huddle and watch the camera work on him and tell me what he's telling Chase on that one.
Well, you tell me.
I don't know.
You don't know.
He's basically I think he changed his route if he saw something to do something on there.
They did motion him to the bunch on that play. Right, I don't know if that was planned or not.
Well, and he's talking to him even before that, so it's almost like he wanted to maybe identify it by having him go out, and then motion it to see what the reciprocal would be of that, and then he has the old hand in front of the mouth trying to block what he says and. Tells him something that go watch that. Okay. And anybody listening to this as well too. Any good lip readers, go look at that on Game Pass and tell me what Ben Roethlisberger is telling them. But I just thought look, one thing that we're learning from Roethlisberger this year is a much better command, I think, of what he's seeing across from him. Did maybe the time on the sideline help? That much in that aspect of it. I'm not trying to take anything away from Ben's IQ or anything like that, but we're seeing a lot more analytical Ben out there, I think, than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin did make a reference to that on the Bob Pompiani show, the Mike Tomlin show with Pomp last week, saying that, being on the sideline, as miserable as that experience obviously was, it kind of did provide a perspective he's never had before. Even in his rookie year, he's starting by game 2. I mean, he's playing right away, so he's never really been a guy that just sit on the sideline and watch from that perspective, never had any, multi-month injury like that where you're just sitting there and watching. And so, yeah, I'm sure that to some extent it did offer a new window, and probably he's using that now. I think that's a reasonable argument to make.
Okay.
And the other thing with Claypool in that 47-yarder was, and I know that ball was a deep ball, so you kind of have to keep running through it to go get it, but I just like how Claypool flashed late hands on that one. Just put his hands up at the last second so the quarterback can't anticipate when that ball is going to land. And so just a little subtlety with Claypool. His releases are better than where they were in college. And so just doing a lot of things that are abnormal for a rookie, and I mean that in a very positive way.
Absolutely. Anything else offensively? We talked a little bit about the use of the motion the other day, and the success rates up even more as far as that goes. All runs on the 13 plays that were non-penalties there. Digging deeper into the RPOs early in the game, what'd you find?
Just that they were bad decisions by Ben. The Browns are playing really tight man coverage. They were playing press. They weren't given a lot of space. And, I mean, you could argue some of the box counts meant that Ben, could throw the football.
Well,
but, yeah.
To me, it looked like he should have ran on a few of them.
Yeah, I think there were a couple that probably should have just handed the ball off to Connor, but just some forced throws by Pittsburgh and by Ben, just trying to feel out the Browns, but they just weren't good decisions. It's plain and simple.
Right. I mean, they weren't. He got away with a couple of them, and then obviously the one that went off McLeod's hands, probably they caught a break on that one as well too.
I think that was a good call to throw because that box was loaded, and if McLeod makes that catch, he gets the first down. So I think that was a good decision. McLeod obviously just has to hang on to the football.
Right.
But yeah, I think that was everything for the offense. Special teams, I just want to give another shout out to Jordan Dangerfield. He's got 4 tackles his last 2 games. He had 2 of them Sunday against the Browns. This is an 8-year guy, undrafted free agent from Townsend. Was with Buffalo his first year. Pittsburgh scoops him up. He's a special team captain now. So kudos to Dangerfield for being one of those success stories.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Dave, you want to touch on from the All-22?
I thought you did a good job going through the James Washington touchdown and the setup leading up to it. I think
assist to you because you found that one that I missed from they ran it like 2 plays before.
Yeah, I thought you were burying the lead there, and it's rare for me to look. Here's the good thing about it is you and I just stay. I mean. Alex, the rest of my life, I'll be buried in that stuff as long as I have access to it because you can't watch it enough, right? I mean, every moment I get, I'm flipping it back on, and I'll come across something that I didn't catch before. That's a good thing about having so many of us that bury ourselves in the All-22 is that one of us will catch something that maybe the other one doesn't there, But I thought even starting from the RPOs at the beginning of the game, it was a little bit of a message, to find out how they were going to be attacked, or defended. How much man are we going to possibly see in this game? So I think that was the start there. And throughout it, they saw different things, and I thought you did a good job of presenting the plays and different formations there and route combinations that helped set that up. And then, as you stated, two plays, they just flipped 2 plays before the touchdown to James Washington. It was the same exact route combination, everything just flipped to the other side. I think different. Who ran the go route on that? Claypool.
Yeah, well, Claypool caught a 7-yard out the 2 plays before. Then
Right.
They ran Washington on the double move, the out and up.
Right.
So they set it up with the out route, and then they set it up. They hit it with the double move on that play.
A lot of times you would think though they would run that on the same side to bait that corner, but I guess they figured, look, we've done this enough now. The trap has been laid, and let's just see what we get on the other side. And look, I mean, Ben and that pump fake. I mean,
that's what sold it.
That doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the key there is that cornerback playing off, because if the cornerback's playing press and he's watching the receiver, the pump's probably not going to influence him because he's not really looking at the quarterback, but they're seeing the cornerback play off coverage against that bunch. So it was against a different cornerback, Denzel Ward is who they finally got, but because he's playing off, he's reading the quarterback's eyes, and the bend pump is just undefeated, and that's what really allowed the out and up, the double move to work.
You're seeing a lot more, obviously, this year than last year. You're seeing progressions offensively through the game of them learning from what they're seeing on the other side and adjusting to it. And not only are they trying to adjust, they're having success when they adjust. And that to me is a very encouraging sign when it comes from the offense. And look, I mean, make no mistake about it, all what they're doing inside this red zone right now with the stuff with Chase Claypool, all that's getting loaded up on tape. So as long as you're able to continue to build off of that, that's going to pay your success that you've already had in with certain aspects like the Chase Claypool is going to open up other successes because teams are going to be so immersed on making sure you don't get it the way that you have it down on tape.
Yeah, it's about constraint plays. That's something that Todd Haley, I thought, was one of his best qualities as a play caller, was using one play to set up another or seeing what a defense responds to with one formation or grouping or coverage, whatever the case is, and then using that against them later in the game. And I think we're seeing better examples of constraint plays this year than last year, which is expected when you have Ben as your quarterback.
Right. And as we've already stated and made sure we give credit to several times there, Ben is doing a lot of good on his own. You know, look, the RPOs, you'd like to seen him read those better early in the game, in my opinion. But those really are about the only mistakes that he made, in my opinion. There, look, we talked about already the deep ball already, 3 of 6, I think, on deep balls, and 3 of 3 on balls over 20 yards. Of course, one, I think you could have completed that one to James Washington there. But yeah, deep ball is a deep ball is a deep ball. The one to Claypool obviously was a bucket throw, and then as we mentioned the other day, the other one to James Washington was a throw or was a ball that probably only James Washington or only the Steelers receiver is going to catch in that situation there. So a lot of positives coming out of that Browns game. Success overall running success, overall success when using motion at the snap of the football, and then throwing the football down the field more than 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. Had some successes there. So an overall positive, and you did so without having David DeCastro on the field, and you did so without having Deontay Johnson on the field there. So you hope to have those two guys back this week on top of it.
Yeah, if this offense can continue to do what it's been doing with a deep ball now working, as it did against Cleveland, I mean, there are very few weaknesses with this unit if they can consistently hit the deep ball the way they did against the Browns. And so they do that with this defense. It's a really good team and a tough team to stop.
I hate to keep going back to the adjusted. No, I don't.
Yeah, don't lie to me.
No, but in all fairness here, I'm surprised to see that offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, even though it's a small sample size, at 7.4 already, because it hasn't felt like it. It's felt more like a running team with a quarterback that hasn't been able to hit the deep ball. But when they have hit, they've hit it enough that it's made a difference. And oh yeah, he's not getting sacked a ton, and he's not turning the football over. So you literally just only turn the football over. What does he have? The TD to interception ratios now? What, 11-1? Is that right?
Yeah. I think 11-1.
I mean, that alone's going to have your adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat up there. And then that combined with him not being sacked a whole heck of a lot, and then a couple of the big plays mixed in there on top of it. But look, I mean, you look at this team on both sides of the football from that one stat alone. Like I said, I could have been on a desert island, and you hand me this list, and I'll say, these are the teams that you need to look out for. The Steelers are tied for second overall in differential of adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat with 2.7. That's not a bad number to have right now. The Chiefs lead the way at 3.0. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams with positive differential, or maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe I don't have it enlarged. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 18 teams with a positive differential stat right now with heading into week 7 here. It's going to sound like a Captain Obvious statement here. It's like, no duh. You think you could whittle it down even more, Dave, but one of your Super Bowl champions coming out of one of these 18 teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know my favorite differential stat?
Turnover.
Turnover differential.
Yeah.
The top teams in turnover differential: Tennessee, Seattle, Baltimore, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, all +4 or better. I mean, you look at the number you gave, the number I give you. I mean, you can just tell based off of those two stats alone, those two figures alone, who are the top teams in football.
And then look, you go back to the article you wrote at the beginning of last year, right? What the characteristics, one key stat, a characteristic a Super Bowl team has is
25 takeaways as a defense, and Pittsburgh's well on the way to do that again this year.
And they have what, 9 through 5? Is that right?
Yes, 9 through 5, yes.
Okay, and that's on pace to have like what, 28 or 29 or something like that?
Oh, math late in the show here. 1.8 times 16 is 29. We'll call it.
That's right on. That's right
Not
where
bad.
they need to be.
Yep. And so, the defense continues to get sacks, get takeaways, taking care of the football. 1 turnover the last 3 games. But Tennessee can say the same. I mean, again, they've turned the football over, 3 times this year? Yeah, 3 times this entire season. So they're taking really good care of the football as well.
Right.
All right, Dave, I think that's probably a good wrap on the All-22. Let's get to some reader emails here and begin closing out today's show.
Okay, let's see here. Let me get to Lou. Lou Munns writes in, hey, David Alex, the media up here in Cleveland is preaching that the Steelers neutralized the Browns defense by tripling and quadrupling coverage on Myles Garrett. I don't get the All-22, and I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game. Is that what you two have seen on the rewatch? No, I mean they did probably they do. There was a little bit of chipping going on, with him, but it wasn't astronomical. I didn't feel.
No, I don't either. I mean, as you said, chipping, some extra attention given to Garrett because he's Myles Garrett, but this wasn't like when a core 4 played against Von Miller in his first start ever, 2 years ago, and they gave all the attention to a core 4 and Von Miller. I mean, it was not anything super focused on Myles Garrett.
I would agree there. I mean, look, they're trying to blame. You want to blame it on something? Blame it on your on your quarterback over there. That's to start blaming on the offensive line. Would be another place to start there if you're a Cleveland fan there. Jeff Burns writes in, Dave and Alex, always need to make it a point to thank you for the great work. I live in the Bay Area of California, but drive to Reno a lot. Boy, Reno's beautiful, man. I think I told you that last time. I can't wait to go back up to Reno. Your podcasts make those drives a lot easier. Much appreciated. That's a beautiful area up there, up into Lake Tahoe and all, Jeff. That's God's country up there. He says the Steelers seem to be scoring a lot more after getting turnovers or getting them putos, as you like to say, Dave. That had been the issue for years, it seemed. Don't know what the percentage was, but from a fan point of view, it didn't seem to happen very often. What do you attribute that to? Ben, he says, Ben not forcing the ball to AB, different offensive game plan, Matt Canada's involvement. What do you think? Thanks again, guys, and cheers to the memory of Dave T. It's been a privilege to listen to him on the show. All right, thanks for that, Jeff Burns. No relation to Artie Burns, he says. All right, Jeff, look, I think it's all encompassed of a lot of things that you said. Ben's not forcing the ball first and foremost. Second of all, you got a little bit semblance of a running game, and I think more importantly, more than anything else, is they're dunking it when they're inside the red zone finally, and that's one thing that they obviously didn't do. They had several trips to the red zone last season. They just weren't finishing those red zone trips off like they were the year before. So I think it's a lot of what you pointed out there, Jeff.
Yeah, I agree with what you said and what Jeff said. And the red zone offense isn't even that great this year. It's about average, but it's a world of difference from the 32nd ranked red zone offense last year. Now, part of that's slightly skewed because they've had some kneel downs and stuff, and the games where they were in the red zone, that probably changes the number slightly. But just to be even average in the red zone offense feels like a breath of fresh air compared to where this team was last year.
And it's still early, and I think as we just said, talking about the Claypool influence inside the red zone already, there's no reason to think that the red zone, at least at better, red zone percentage production will continue to get a little bit better as the season progresses. If they're smart and they build off of what they already have out there on tape, there's no reason there shouldn't be a couple. And I'm talking easy touchdowns too. I'm talking rolling out misdirection off some of that stuff, and a Watt or a tight end just leaking right to the middle of the field, pretend those kind of touchdowns that you see see other teams get inside the red zone. You say to yourself, man, why can't the Steelers get a couple of gimmies like that? I think they're coming. All right.
Yeah, I think so.
Daniel writes in, hey guys, as always, thanks for the podcast. I appreciate the objectivity in assessing and discussing the game/team. I'm sure you guys are super eager to keep discussing the inside linebacker position since Bush's injury. So here's another email about it. Pretty simple. Based on their performances in a Steelers uniform in the Butler defense, rank these players: Sean Spence, Mark Barron, John Bostic, Robert Spillane, Tyler Matakevich. And yes, I'm just trying to get a feel for what sort of comfort level to have with a Bushless defense moving forward, seeing as how he was considered such a missing piece after we lost Shazier. So he wants us to kind of rank those 5 backup running backs: Sean Spence, Mark Barron, John Bostic, Robert Spillane, Tyler Matakevich. Ugh.
And this is from a defensive snap perspective. I assume they're not taking special teams into this.
Don't count here.
So Barron, Spence, Bostic, Spillane, Matakevich. That's the 5, right?
Yeah, sounds like a law firm, doesn't
it? not a good one. Not one I would go to. I mean, Spillane's still, the jury's still partially out. I don't know. We could try to piece this together. I don't even know who I would put first. I don't know who I would put last. I don't know if it makes a difference.
I don't think it does either. I think until we see more, I think Barron's got to be the best of this list.
Yeah.
That's not saying much.
All right, I'm going to go Barron's. I'm going to put Spillane second. I know that could change.
I think that's fair from what we've seen so far. I think that's fair.
So I'm going to go Bostic, Matakevich, Spence. Maybe it's being a little unfair to Spence because we're just thinking about him.
Yeah, I tend to want. Yeah, the problem is we never really saw a healthy Spence.
Right. Oh, he got hurt in that last preseason game and blew out his knee.
Right. We never really were afforded the opportunity to see much of a Spence anyway. But I would just rotate the last two. I'd have Matakevich last.
All right. So you have Barron, Spillane, Bostic, Spence, Matakevich.
Yes.
All right, and I got Matakevich and Spence swapped.
Once again, we're how
shortest
bad?
Kid,
how bad?
Kid in kindergarten.
Who has the? That's a good one. I was going to say whose poop smells the worst.
Yeah. Yours is probably more on the nose. But we'll see with Spillane. I'm excited with Spillane. I mean,
I am too. Look, I do you think there is still that level of athleticism there that maybe he's undersold on after watching the tape that I've talked about?
Well, it depends on how you frame it. If you think he's Matakevich, I think you are underselling Spillane's athleticism. I put him in the Vince Williams camp, where the processing helps him get away with some of the average athleticism. But he's an average athlete. It's not terrible, but when you got 2 guys with similar athleticism, Vince and Spillane, it might be an issue. When you had Bush out there coupled with Vince, it was a great pairing. When you have 2 guys that are pretty similar skill set wise, I do have a level of concern there.
All right, let's Connor Dietrich writes in, writing from Elizabethville, Pennsylvania, but I'm a student at Cal U of PA, one of the schools Alex was talking about merging with Clarion. My question is about the offensive line, since I don't have all 22 to see for myself. Boy, you people better ask Santa Claus for subscription to the Game Pass. Could you guys rank the offensive linemen so far this year, or just say who you think has been the best and worst of the bunch? Just from watching on TV, I think Filer has been the worst and AV the best, but would love to hear more informed opinions. Thanks. You guys have a great day. Connor.
Yeah, I don't have a ranking because there's also been injuries and guys mixing and matching. I think it's fair to say no one's been bad. I think it's fair to say Filer might be number 5 on that list, but I don't think he's been terrible, just a little worse in pass pro than what I expected. And yeah, you can put Villanueva at the top. So I don't have a list off the top of my head, but I think the way you're framing it, Connor, is grounded in reality.
Let's see here. Which way would I go with that? I think Villanueva is playing really, really well this season. I would probably go. Look, Dotson hasn't played bad either, and De Castro, when he's been healthy, hasn't played awful. And all I know is I would put this. I'd probably put Villanueva at the top. I would put Filer at the bottom, and then just throw darts at however you want to rank the other 3.
I think that's basic what I would do as well.
The thing is they're playing overall good as a unit. I think.
And that's the
There,
most important
and
thing.
that is the
And
most. Go ahead.
kudos to Sean Surratt. I know Ben coming back here some of that stuff, but I criticized Surratt at the end of last year. That line's done a really nice job communicating. Run blocking stuff has been better than last year schematically, so kudos to Surratt.
Buddy Bryce is back. Big win. It sucks to see Devin Bush go down. Spillane has obviously shown some good physicality, which I believe will serve him as well. Blah blah blah. Going against Henry and the Ravens rush attack. What have you seen on tape of Spillane? How does he fare in coverage? Running backs, tight ends. Is he better? Blah 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 than one or the other? Does he hold his own, or is he really disadvantaged in space? Bryce, I think we already talked enough about Spillane in here. Go look at the film room that Tyler did. That's up on SteelersDepot.com today. Look, I mean we're playing with 30 snaps on Spillane right now, right? So, I mean, it's hard for us to draw hard conclusions on just that limited amount of tape. But I think you've got a good idea, Bryce, right now of what we've seen so far on Spillane, and next two games I think are going to be kind of telling with him.
Yeah, I mean, in training camp in 2019, I saw some issues in coverage, but as you said, the sample size is so tiny, it's hard to know, and so we'll find out more about him. We'll get our answers pretty quickly. I'll tell you that much.
He goes on, right. I'd love to see this offense find a way to get the deep ball going to Juju. What schemes or concepts do you think the team need to run more of to get explosive plays from him going forward? Look, one quick slant. We've seen Juju be able to hit on some of these skinny posts, if you will, or these quick slants and kind of run after the catch on those. It's only a matter of time before they run the slot fade with him. As well. In fact, it might be his turn this next game to kind of run that slot fade that Claypool ran the other game. It's only a matter of time. I think people. I don't know. Juju's just taking a whole hell of a lot of abuse lately, man.
Yeah, he's playing fine. He's been used more of that possession slot role. And just by the way, here not to get into a tangent too much, and this is a little vaguely worded from Shefty, but some receiver news. I'll read the tweet here verbatim. Quote, with Antonio Brown's suspension eligible to end after Week 8, the Seattle Seahawks are now positioned to make a push to sign him, though they're not alone, league sources tell ESPN. Other teams are also interested. So, AB, looks like he's going to join a team here sooner than later.
Yeah, that'll be interesting there.
There you go.
What
like
else?
Seattle.
Let's see here. Yeah.
Any Marquette King? And I thought we'd have Marquette King emo for sure, because I got so many comments about signing Marquette King this week. I lost count.
Is it just his attitude that's got teams turned off, or what?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's good enough to be in the league for sure. He's been a really good punter for Oakland, so I don't know if there was that concern there. I think that's kind of silly, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I thought was the issue with him, and I can't come up with anything, But the fact that he's not punting anywhere right now is a sign of something,
Yeah, for sure.
So something's going on that probably needs a little bit more investigation there. He goes on to say, Romo highlighted on Sunday the Steelers' use of two high safeties, but couldn't pinpoint what the coverages were because he said the Steelers were doing such a good job of disguising them. However, it looked to me like they were running a lot of two-man with those two high safeties, but also allowing the safeties to read routes and jump some things if they saw their deep zones weren't being threatened. I could be wrong on this, but I want to get your thoughts. What were you saying on the Steelers' use of the safeties?
Yeah, it was a mix and matches stuff. There was a lot of rotation, so they hid their their coverages pretty well, looking like too high, pre-snapped and rolling down. You wouldn't really two-man into a robber type situation, but it's a mix and match. There's been two-man, there's been straight cover two, there's been inversions. I mean, it's hard to pin it down to just one specific coverage.
Edward Arnold was the guy that I told to write back, so I better get to his email here. He says, I'm writing to you fellows from the opposite side of the state, NFC least territory. You asked at the end of Monday's show to send my question again, but I think you guys did a good job of answering it during the YouTube live stream. I guess this is my first time technically writing in. I found you guys at the beginning of the pandemic, and you have helped me through a ton of hours at work. My days are spent delivering packages for Big Brown. My new question is about this week's game. Will we witness the second Big Bang event if Henry and Vince meet in the whole Sunday? Also, do you think we should have concerns about road bin? I appreciate the work you guys do, and we'll continue to catch all your shows when you put them out. YouTube Live is an issue with my work schedule. Thanks again. Ed, thanks for writing in. Thanks for writing in a second time there. Vince, yeah, we could see a giant explosion there if those two guys meet.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that earlier this week. If Vince and Henry meet in the hole, that'd be a fun outcome to watch that one. That's like the old, Earl Campbell versus, I don't know, Donnie Shell. Was that Donnie Shell that had to hit on Earl Campbell years back?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I hope we get to see that because that'd be a fun one to watch.
Concerns about Road Ben? Yeah, I kind of forgot about Road Ben. I don't think he's had his best games over in Tennessee either, if memory serves me. I think he kind of mentioned that during his media session today. On top of it, there, you know what? I mean, I'm not going to be worried about Road Ben until Road Ben shows up again.
Amen to that.
So I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about. I might play around with some stats with that here, at the end of the week here. Jonathan Glick writes in, "Hey, David, I was a big fan of the pod. Listening to reasoned opinions based on analysis rather than hot takes is refreshing. Thanks for all you do." Thanks for that, Jonathan. With so much money and skill up front with Tuitt, Cam, TJ, and Bud, I often want the Steelers to only rush 4 and stop blitzing Hilton so often. To my eye, it seemed that the Steelers did blitz Hilton less against the Browns and relied on the front 4 to get pressure. Did you pick up on this watching the All-22? Is this a recipe going forward without Bush so that more guys are in coverage? Jonathan from Maryland. Look, I think we said right out of the chute, those blitz rates are going to come down. They were manufactured high to start the season there. Look, Hilton's good on, if you time it right and if you get the right look with Hilton coming off the edge, why not? Down distance, all that's going to play into it and all as well. Now, we'll see what happens with Hilton and his status for this week's game and all, but they're still going to blitz their normal rates, I think, when it all comes out in the wash here about 3 or 4 more games.
Yeah, I agree. There's ebb and flow to it. Their blitz numbers have come down because, as you said, they just weren't sustainable. They were dropping 8 in the coverage more. They dropped TJ and Bud in the coverage more than the last couple of weeks. So I don't think there'll be a great direct comparison between the blitz rates with Bush out. Maybe a little bit, but nothing significant because Hilton in himself is just a really good blitzer.
Man, we got so many emails here, man.
Well, we can do 1 or 2 more, then catch the rest for Friday, maybe.
Yeah. I wish I could find the one that was asking about my wife.
Is that from your wife?
Let's see. Okay, here it is from James A. Robinson. I've listened to the podcast for years now, but this is my first time writing, so hashtag first time, long time. All right, we like these first timers now. Keep them coming. There are 2 questions I'd like to ask. Firstly, it seems like many Steeler fans don't seem to watch much of the rest of the league. I think I hear more salient observations made of potential draftees than of other players. Other players and teams right here in the NFL. Do you feel, therefore, like I do, that many of the less than intelligent questions you get would be alleviated if fans watch more of what happens elsewhere on Sundays? Yeah, look, I think sometimes we get caught up that me and Alex do this 24/7. We get to see and watch everything. Not some fans are fans of the team and have no want or rhyme or reason or anything. They still think they're good fans by asking questions about other teams, but they won't watch anything that other teams do.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I think it's a good perspective. Is that we're allowed to do this because this is our job, and other people, they have jobs, they have lives, and things like that. So I don't begrudge fans for that. I know some questions can be a little out of left field or a little obvious, but that's okay. We're here to answer all questions, big and small, obvious and otherwise.
The ones that just get me is the guy that the at-home GM, with the trades and the signings and all like that. Those are the hardest for me to swallow sometimes. Second part of this question, I hear you talk about your wife so many years from time to time. In fact, I do believe we even heard her recently. And I just wanted to ask one thing. Being that she's married to you, when does she qualify for sainthood? Yeah, she should already have had that. We had my internet and power went out this morning, so imagine dealing with me through that. she had a few. I got a beating and a talking to this morning. Another one. Thank you. You and Alex keep up the great work, and I'll hang up and listen to your answers off the air. Thanks for the first time email there, Jason. All right, we've gotten through so many of these, Alex. We'll try to get through whatever ones we didn't get to, maybe on the next podcast here. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Whew. We told you it's worth the wait. With that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. The great Dr. Mel, at Girl Surgeon, will be on the Friday show. We'll talk about Devin Bush and all like that. So if you got questions for her, get those things sent in to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Alex and I will further preview the game against the Titans. We'll give you our picks and predictions for the rest of the Week 7 games. And I need to get some writing done here. Got an injury report to write up here. So with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.